Introduction. Thank you for listening to this audiobook summary. Your time is precious, and I'm grateful you chose to spend it here. If you find value in this journey, please subscribe and share it with someone who may also need it. Now, let us begin. Have you ever felt trapped in a storm of thoughts, carried away by worries of the future or memories of the past? If so, you are not alone. Millions live imprisoned by the chatter of the mind, cut off from the peace of the present moment. This book, The Power of Now, was written as a guide out of that prison. It is not theory. It is not abstract philosophy. It is a living pointer to the possibility of freedom, available here and now. Eckhart Tolle, once tormented by years of anxiety and despair, experienced a profound shift one night when he realized that he could no longer live with the voice in his head. In that instant, a new awareness awakened, silent, vast, and free of suffering. Out of that experience came his teaching, that underneath the turmoil of our thoughts lies the stillness of our true nature, and in discovering it, we find the end of suffering. This introduction reminds us that the book is not meant to be consumed as mere information. It is an invitation to presence. Each chapter opens doors into a deeper dimension of life, a way of being beyond compulsive thinking, beyond fear, beyond the false self. As you listen, allow yourself to pause, to breathe, to feel the words rather than only think about them. What matters is not the form of the sentences, but the space they point to within you, the awareness that is always here. This is the journey ahead, from identification with the restless mind toward a realization of being, from pain and resistance into the simple joy of now. And so, let us step into Chapter 1, where we uncover the greatest obstacle to enlightenment, the belief that you are your mind. Chapter 1. You are not your mind. Why is it that peace always slips away the moment your mind begins to race? Why does true freedom feel impossible when your thoughts never stop? In this first chapter, Eckhart Tolle invites us to look directly at the greatest obstacle to enlightenment, our mistaken belief that we are our mind. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment. Enlightenment is not some distant achievement. It is not reserved for monks in temples or seekers who have spent lifetimes in meditation. Tolle insists that enlightenment is simply the end of suffering, available to every human being now. Yet the greatest obstacle is very close to us. It is the constant stream of thoughts that run through our head, and our complete identification with them. The mind is a wonderful servant but a dangerous master. Left unchecked, it becomes compulsive, producing endless stories, judgments, doubts, and fears. We mistake these for reality, but they are only thoughts. The tragedy is that we begin to think this is who we are. We merge with every opinion, every memory, every worry. Our identity shrinks to the voice in the head. This identification with the mind is the root of suffering. It separates us from others, creates division and conflict, and blinds us to the deeper reality of life. Philosophers have declared, "I think, therefore I am," but Tolle warns that this is the very error that imprisons us. We are not our thinking. We are the consciousness that perceives thinking. To confuse the two is to live in bondage. Recognizing this error is the very first step. The obstacle is not something outside of us, not circumstances, not other people, not the world. The obstacle is within. The mind, mistaken for the self, becomes both the master and the prison. Awakening begins by seeing this truth clearly. When we realize that we are not identical to the constant voice in the head, a new possibility opens: freedom through awareness. Freeing yourself from your mind. If the mind is the obstacle, how do we step free? Tolle answers with a simple yet radical practice: watch the thinker. Become the witness of your thoughts. Instead of being swept away, notice them as they arise. Listen as though you were an observer, not a participant. When you do this, even for a moment, a strange thing happens. A gap appears. For a second, there is only awareness, pure, silent presence without thought. This is the beginning of freedom. That gap, that stillness, is a window into the now. Even a brief taste of this stillness can change everything. You realize that you are not your thoughts, but the awareness behind them. The more often you create this space, the more presence begins to replace compulsive thinking. It is not a trance, not an escape. In fact, it is the most alert state of consciousness possible. Tolle compares it to breathing fresh air after being trapped in a crowded room. When you step back from the voice in your head, you discover a vastness within you, a quiet intelligence that is infinitely greater than thought. This awareness is the beginning of true liberation. The stillness is subtle, but it carries with it a sense of peace and spaciousness that the mind alone can never produce. Enlightenment, rising above thought. But if thoughts cause suffering, should we try to eliminate them altogether? No. Thinking is not the enemy. It is a useful tool, essential for daily life. The problem arises only when thought takes over completely, leaving no space for awareness. Enlightenment is not the absence of thought, but the ability to rise above it. You can still think, still use the mind when needed, but it no longer controls you. Thought becomes the servant of awareness, not its master. Tolle points out that many great works of art, discoveries, and inventions were born not from relentless thinking but from moments of stillness. Insights arrive when the mind is quiet, when awareness opens to a deeper dimension of intelligence. Creativity flows through you, rather than from you. To live in this way is to move from effort into effortless alignment with life itself. The key to this shift is the present moment. Only in the now can you access being. The timeless essence of life. When the mind grows silent, awareness shines through, and the truth of who you are reveals itself. Enlightenment is not something you achieve in the future. It is the realization of what has always been here, underneath the noise of thought. When you are rooted in the now, even thought is purified, aligned with the clarity of presence. Emotion, the body's reaction to your mind. Emotions are another layer of the mind's influence. They are not separate from thought, but its reflection in the body. Every thought produces a response. A threatening thought sparks fear, and the body contracts. A judgmental thought stirs anger, and the body tenses. A memory of guilt or shame weighs heavily in the chest. Much of human suffering comes from this cycle. Thoughts create emotions, emotions reinforce thoughts, and the loop continues endlessly. Tolle explains that to break this cycle, we must bring awareness into the body. Instead of resisting emotions or trying to explain them, feel them directly as energy. Notice fear in the belly, tension in the shoulders, sadness in the chest. The moment you observe emotion with presence, something shifts. Awareness brings light into unconscious patterns. Emotions begin to lose their grip. They dissolve, not because you fought them, but because you allowed them to be fully seen. Even pain itself becomes transformed in the light of awareness. This does not mean emotions vanish instantly, but your relationship with them changes. You no longer say, "I am angry." You recognize, "There is anger in me." The emotion is seen as temporary, not as identity. You remain the ocean of awareness, in which waves of feeling arise and fall. By practicing this, you begin to see how mind and body are deeply connected, and how both can be liberated through the simple act of awareness. Chapter 1 reveals a radical truth: you are not your mind. Thoughts and emotions are powerful, but they are not who you are. Beneath them lies awareness, silent, vast, and free. The practice begins by observing, by stepping back from identification with the voice in the head. It begins by creating space, by choosing presence over compulsion. Once you glimpse that you are the witness of thought and emotion, not their captive, a door opens to freedom. But this also raises a deeper question. If the mind is the source of suffering, then what is the way out? How do we move from awareness of the obstacle into the lived experience of freedom? In the next chapter, Eckhart Tolle reveals how consciousness itself, pure presence, the power of now, becomes the path out of pain. The journey continues with the discovery that awareness, once awakened, is the key to liberation. Chapter 2. Consciousness, the way out of pain. Pain is everywhere. It clings to memories of the past and fears of the future. But what if suffering is not inevitable? What if freedom lies in something so simple, so immediate, that we constantly overlook it? In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle reveals that consciousness itself is the path out of pain. Create no more pain in the present. Most human pain is unnecessary. It is self-created, produced by resistance to what is. The mind clings to stories of injustice, replaying the past, projecting fear into the future. Each time we resist the present moment, we add another layer of suffering. The mind whispers that life should be different, that this moment should not be as it is. This inner conflict builds tension, and tension turns into suffering. Physical pain exists. But psychological pain, worry, anger, guilt, regret, is a creation of the mind. Whenever we say no to what is, we resist life itself. The moment we stop resisting, the moment we say yes to the now, much of the pain dissolves. Awareness of the present removes the mind's fuel. Instead of amplifying discomfort with thought, presence allows what is to be, and in that allowance, pain loses its grip. This is the first key: do not add to pain by resisting the now. Past pain, dissolving the pain body. Tolle describes the pain body, an accumulation of old emotional pain, living inside us. Every unresolved hurt leaves an imprint. These stored emotions can awaken, feeding on present circumstances. They attach themselves to new events, magnifying reactions far beyond what is reasonable. Someone says a careless word, and suddenly an avalanche of anger rises. A minor setback awakens despair out of proportion. This is the pain body at work, drawing strength from memory and past suffering. When triggered, the pain body demands more suffering. It thrives on drama, on conflict, on negative thinking. It wants to feed. Recognizing its presence is crucial. The moment you observe it, you separate awareness from pain. You see that the pain body is not who you are, but an old energy pattern that dissolves under the light of consciousness. Each time it arises and you remain present, its hold weakens. Slowly, its power diminishes, and the weight of the past begins to lift. This process is not about suppression, but illumination. An end to pain through conscious presence. How do we bring an end to pain? Not by fighting it, not by analyzing it, but by bringing attention into the now. The instant you fully accept the present, suffering lessens. Conscious presence interrupts the mind's cycle of resistance. Even in hardship, acceptance shifts the experience. What you resist, persists; what you accept, begins to transform. To be present is to stop fueling pain with thought. Tolle emphasizes, do not ask whether the pain will end in the future. Ask only whether you can be present now. Even in moments of difficulty, acceptance opens a door. Consciousness allows pain to transform, revealing peace beneath it. You begin to discover that peace does not come from the absence of problems, but from being fully aligned with the reality of this moment. In that alignment, suffering ends. Presence does not deny pain, but it removes the mind-made suffering layered on top of it. The way out of pain is the now. The now is more than a point in time. It is the dimension in which life truly unfolds. Past and future are mind-made illusions. They are shadows of the now, never real in themselves. When we live in past or future, we live in pain. When we return to the now, we return to freedom. Each breath, each sensation, each act of awareness brings us back to the only reality there is. This is why awareness is the way out of suffering. By entering the now, we step out of identification with mind and pain body. Presence is not passive resignation. It is alert acceptance, the power of life itself moving through us. When you embrace the now, you open to the richness of being. Life is no longer reduced to problems to solve, it becomes something to experience fully. The present is not a stepping stone to another moment. It is life itself. In this realization, even pain is seen differently, not as something to be feared, but as something that dissolves when touched by presence. Pain dissolves in the light of presence. By no longer resisting what is, we begin to discover freedom in the now. But presence requires vigilance. The mind will attempt to pull us back into past and future, into stories and grievances. To remain in the now is a practice of remembering what you are beyond thought. In the next chapter, Tolle shows how deeply our mind resists this shift, and how ego, built on thought, keeps us trapped in suffering. Consciousness opens the door, awareness keeps us free. Chapter 3. Moving deeply into the now. Why is it so hard to remain in the present, even when we know it holds peace? The mind constantly pulls us away, insisting that the next moment will bring fulfillment. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle shows that the now is not only the key to freedom but the very essence of life itself. Don't seek yourself in the mind. From childhood, we are conditioned to search for identity in thought, in memories, achievements, roles, and imagined futures. Yet the self constructed by the mind is fragile, unstable, and forever changing. The past is already gone. The future has not yet arrived. The only reality that exists is the now. To seek yourself in the mind is to search in shadows. The mind tells you that who you are is the story of your life, your history, your labels, your successes and failures. But Tolle insists this is not your true essence. The habit of looking for self in thought creates dissatisfaction. Each accomplishment fades. Each memory weakens. The mind, restless and unsatisfied, reaches for a new anchor. The search never ends because the mind cannot provide what only presence reveals. To know yourself as being, you must step out of mind and enter the now. Only then does a deeper, stable sense of identity appear, one rooted in awareness rather than form. This shift reveals freedom untouched by circumstances. You no longer cling to fleeting labels, but stand in the reality of being. End the delusion of time. Clock time is useful for practical life, but psychological time, the obsession with past and future, is an illusion. Stress, guilt, anxiety, and regret all arise when we live in time rather than in presence. The past exists only as memory, and the future is imagination. When you see this clearly, their grip weakens, and the reality of now stands revealed. Psychological time robs us of life. We postpone living, always waiting for happiness to arrive later. We replay mistakes, rehearse grievances, and project fears. Both directions keep us trapped. Liberation begins when we recognize time for what it is, a mental construct. The now is the field in which all life unfolds. To stop clinging to time is to step into reality itself. This recognition is more than an idea. It is a shift in consciousness. When time is seen as illusion, the urgency of presence is undeniable. We begin to live fully, love fully, and act with clarity, no longer bound by regrets or hopes that never arrive. Time may guide your schedule, but it must never define yourself. Presence reveals that fulfillment is always here. Nothing exists outside the now. Nothing has ever happened outside the now. Every event in history unfolded in the present. Even remembering or imagining occurs in this moment of thought. This is not philosophy but fact. The now is indivisible and whole. To recognize this is to awaken from the dream of time. The mind resists this truth. It says the present is unimportant and insists the treasure lies in the future. But nothing exists outside the now. Life is always here. Seeing this is not adopting a new belief, it is experiencing reality directly. When this becomes clear, you realize something profound: life is complete in this moment. To live in the now is to step out of illusion and into wholeness. Living with this awareness transforms everything. Relationships grow lighter. Work becomes clearer. Challenges are faced with presence instead of anxiety. The now is not a fragment of time. It is the container of all existence. Once you see this truth, it cannot be unseen. You discover a stillness deeper than thought, the ground of all being. The key to the spiritual dimension. Presence is the doorway to the spiritual dimension. It reveals the depth of being beneath surface appearances. The mind resists stillness, fearing its own end, but when you enter the now you encounter peace untouched by thought. Stillness is not emptiness. It is aliveness. The now is the portal to the unmanifested, the source of life beyond form. The spiritual dimension is not elsewhere. It is here, concealed by distraction and revealed in awareness. To touch it, you need no extraordinary effort. You simply stop running from the moment and allow it to be. Presence authenticates itself. When you taste it, you know its truth directly. In stillness, you glimpse eternity. You sense the intelligence that underlies all of life. This cannot be captured by mind but is known in presence. The spiritual dimension is subtle, yet once touched it transforms your entire perception. The more you live in presence, the more you sense that the sacred is not separate from daily life. Every ordinary action becomes infused with being. All problems are illusions of the mind. Problems are mind-made. A situation may require action, but it is not a problem until the mind labels it one. Most problems exist as projections into the future. If you look closely, you will see that in the present moment the problem often does not exist at all. When you live in the now, clarity arises. Challenges are faced directly, without the extra burden of imagined futures or relived pasts. Energy wasted in worry becomes available for real response. Life unfolds step by step. Presence does not deny difficulties, it simply dissolves the illusion that suffering is inevitable. Awareness is deeply practical. It cuts through confusion. It allows action in harmony with reality rather than in conflict with imagined outcomes. Problems dissolve when you see them for what they are, mental stories projected beyond the now. A quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness. Humanity has lived trapped in psychological time for centuries, producing conflict and suffering. To live in the now is not only personal liberation but a collective transformation. Each person who awakens contributes to the evolution of human consciousness. Tolle calls this shift a flowering. It is a quantum leap in awareness. As more people live in presence, cycles of fear and violence dissolve. Presence heals both the individual and the world. The future of humanity depends on this awakening. Each choice for presence contributes to the whole. The transformation of humanity begins with the transformation of one person, you, here, now. This leap is both personal and universal. The shift into now is the shift from ego to being, from illusion to truth. The more this happens on a large scale, the more humanity will step into a future free of the suffering created by time-bound mind. The joy of being. When you release time and enter the now, you discover the joy of being. It is not dependent on circumstances. It is the quiet gladness of existence itself. This joy is subtle but unmistakable. It is peace, it is aliveness, it is your natural state uncovered. In each breath, in each step, in each still moment of awareness, you touch eternity. When you live in this joy, it radiates silently, inviting others into presence as well. Joy is contagious. It spreads not by words but by the field of being. When you rest in presence, the world around you feels its light. This joy is the essence of life shining through you, available in every moment if you are willing to stop and be. In Chapter 3, Tolle reveals that the now is not just a fleeting moment but the doorway to freedom and joy. Yet the mind resists this truth, seeking distraction. In the next chapter, we confront one of its strongest strategies, the ego's attachment to the body and to pain, which keep us identified with form rather than being. Chapter 4. Mind strategies for avoiding the now. The mind resists presence. Even when peace is offered freely in the now, thought devises endless ways to escape it. Why? Because the mind's survival depends on time, on keeping attention bound to past and future. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle uncovers the subtle strategies the mind uses to avoid the now, and shows us how to recognize them for what they are. Loss of the now, the core delusion. The greatest delusion is the belief that life will begin later. The mind convinces us that fulfillment lies in the future, that happiness is waiting once we have achieved, acquired, or become something more. We live as though the present moment is merely a stepping stone. But life is never not now. Each time we postpone presence, we abandon reality and strengthen illusion. This is the mind's basic strategy, to deny the now in favor of a future that never arrives. The habit of postponement shapes our culture, making people chase success, relationships, or possessions as substitutes for presence. Yet the treasure is always here, concealed in what appears ordinary. We search endlessly outward while the doorway inward is never closed. Ordinary unconsciousness. Ordinary unconsciousness is the background hum of dissatisfaction and unease most people live with, daily. It is the subtle resistance to what is, felt as restlessness, tension, or boredom. We normalize this state, calling it just life, but it is the mind keeping us trapped in time. When we are in ordinary unconsciousness, the mind keeps commenting, analyzing, and anticipating, never allowing simple presence. The moment you notice the breath or feel the aliveness in the body, unconsciousness begins to dissolve. Even the smallest act of awareness, listening to a sound, feeling the air on your skin, interrupts this cycle. These glimpses of presence may feel fleeting at first, but each one weakens the mind's grip. Over time, they lengthen, like windows opening into a deeper stillness. Deep unconsciousness. When ordinary unconsciousness intensifies, it becomes deep unconsciousness. This is reactivity, conflict, rage, despair, or violence. The mind completely takes over, and we act out old patterns stored in the pain body. Deep unconsciousness is destructive, both to ourselves and others, because it overrides compassion and clarity. We become consumed by a story of grievance or fear, blind to the reality unfolding around us. Yet, even here, the way out remains the same. Awareness. To witness unconsciousness as it arises is to create space around it, and in that space lies freedom. Awareness does not immediately erase pain, but it disarms its momentum. Each time we recognize reactivity instead of fueling it, unconsciousness weakens, and presence grows stronger. Mind is enemy, mind is tool. Tolle warns that the mind is not evil, it is simply a tool gone unchecked. Left to run our lives, it becomes a tyrant, generating anxiety, judgment, and endless thought loops. But once placed in service of presence, it is a powerful ally. The shift comes from disidentification, realizing, I am not my thoughts. In this recognition, the mind is seen clearly. Its strategies lose their grip, and it becomes useful again for practical tasks without dominating our inner life. You begin to experience freedom when the mind is no longer master but servant, called upon when needed and set aside when not. The mind is like fire, dangerous if uncontrolled, yet luminous and life-giving when placed in the hearth of awareness. Recognizing the voice in the head. The voice in the head is incessant, commenting, judging, projecting. Most people mistake it for who they are. But the voice is not the self, it is a pattern of conditioned thought. To recognize this voice as separate from awareness is a profound awakening. You are the witness of thought, not the thinker. Each time you notice the voice, you step back into presence. At first, the voice may seem overwhelming, but simply observing it breaks identification. You begin to see that the voice is repetitive, often negative, and rarely original. It repeats old conditioning endlessly. With practice, the observer grows stronger, and the voice fades into the background. What remains is a quiet spaciousness in which true perception arises. How the mind uses time to escape the now. One of the mind's most effective strategies is to weave stories about time. It dwells on past regrets, fueling guilt or nostalgia. It projects fears and fantasies into the future, keeping us restless and anxious. Both directions distract us from the only place life is lived, the present. The mind also convinces us that salvation is in future achievement, when I finish this project, when I meet the right partner, when I gain recognition. But these promises are mirages. The satisfaction is temporary, and soon the mind demands another goal. Recognizing this pattern exposes its futility. Awareness reveals that fulfillment is not in a later moment, it is hidden in the texture of now. The moment we see through the illusion of time, we begin to reclaim energy scattered across imagined scenarios. The subtle forms of avoidance. The mind not only creates time stories but also cultivates subtle forms of avoidance. Daydreaming, compulsive thinking, scrolling through devices, constant busyness, all of these are strategies to escape the silence of now. We tell ourselves we are productive or entertained, yet often we are simply running from stillness. Awareness unmasks this avoidance. The moment you recognize distraction as distraction, the spell breaks, and a doorway into presence opens. Such honesty is not harsh judgment, it is the beginning of freedom. You begin to see that our culture encourages distraction, rewarding speed and stimulation, but beneath it all, lies the fear of silence. Freedom through awareness. Awareness does not fight the mind, it simply shines on it. Light dissolves shadows. The more we bring attention to the present, the less power unconscious strategies hold. This freedom is not dramatic. It begins quietly, in a simple breath, a pause, a moment of noticing. Over time, presence becomes the natural state, and the mind serves rather than controls. Awareness transforms even the most ingrained habits. The voice in the head may still arise, but it is met with space instead of identification. Slowly, a gap opens between thought and the witness of thought. In that gap lies peace, creativity, and the joy of being. Presence does not shrink your world, it enlarges it. Every ordinary moment becomes luminous when infused with awareness. The mind resists the now with every strategy it can create. It tries to convince us that life is elsewhere, that presence is insignificant, that salvation is always later. But presence needs no strategy, it is always available. The instant you return attention to this moment, you reclaim your life. In the next chapter, Tolle explores one of the mind's strongest allies in its resistance, the pain body, and shows how awareness can transform even our deepest suffering into freedom. Chapter 5. The Pain Body. What if much of the emotional suffering we carry is not truly ours, but an ancient accumulation of pain that lives through us? Eckhart Tolle calls this the pain body, a semi-autonomous energy field, made up of old emotional wounds. In this chapter, he reveals how the pain body feeds, how it awakens, and how awareness can dissolve its grip. What is the pain body? The pain body is the residue of emotional pain left behind from our past experiences. Every hurt, rejection, and unresolved trauma that was not fully faced accumulates in our inner space. Over time, this dense energy becomes semi-independent. It lies dormant until something triggers it, then suddenly takes over our thoughts and emotions. The pain body thrives on negativity. It feeds on drama, conflict, and suffering, drawing energy from both our inner turmoil and the reactions of others. To recognize its existence is the first step to freedom. How the pain body awakens. When triggered, the pain body rises like a storm. A careless remark, a remembered insult, or even a fleeting mood can awaken it. Suddenly, anger, despair, or hostility fill the body and mind. Rational thought fades as the pain body demands to be fed. We identify with it, saying, "I am angry," or "I am depressed," when in fact it is the pain body speaking through us. Tolle emphasizes, the pain body is not who we are. It is an energetic imprint. Awareness of its arising creates the possibility of choice. Without awareness, we are possessed; with awareness, we observe. The addictive nature of the pain body. Paradoxically, the pain body is not only a burden, it is also addictive. It craves negative experiences the way an addict craves a substance. People caught in its grip may provoke arguments, create unnecessary drama, or relive grievances to satisfy its hunger. This explains why cycles of conflict repeat in relationships and within ourselves. The pain body whispers that suffering is familiar and therefore safe. But feeding it only strengthens it. Starving it begins with conscious recognition, this is the pain body, not me. Collective pain bodies. The pain body is not just individual, it is also collective. Entire groups, nations, and cultures carry accumulated fields of suffering, shaped by wars, oppression, injustice, and generational trauma. These collective pain bodies lie dormant, until stirred by events. Then, erupt in mass rage, prejudice, or violence. To see this is sobering, but it also reveals a path to healing. Each individual who dissolves their personal pain body contributes to the lightening of the collective field. Awareness on a personal level ripples outward into the whole. Dissolving the pain body through presence. How do we free ourselves from the pain body? Not by fighting it, suppressing it, or indulging it, but by observing it in the light of awareness. When you feel the pain body awaken, Tolle advises, stay present. Feel the emotion directly in the body, tightness, heat, heaviness, without turning it into a mental story. The moment you stop identifying with it, the pain body begins to weaken. Each time you allow awareness to shine on it, you deprive it of energy. Over time, its hold diminishes until it dissolves completely. This is not instant, but every moment of conscious presence is a victory. Pain body in relationships. Relationships are fertile ground for the pain body because they offer constant mirrors and triggers. Often, one partner's pain body provokes the others, creating cycles of conflict that seem impossible to break. Tolle teaches that recognizing the pain body in ourselves and others interrupts this cycle. Instead of reacting blindly, we pause and bring awareness. Even one conscious person in a relationship can break the loop. Compassion arises naturally when we see the pain body for what it is, accumulated suffering seeking release. Freedom from identification. The essence of liberation is to realize, I am not my pain body. You are the awareness that perceives it. This recognition does not deny suffering, but it prevents suffering from defining identity. The more deeply you rest in presence, the less grip the pain body has. What once consumed days of reactivity may dissolve in moments of conscious attention. In this way, what was once bondage becomes fuel for awakening. Each encounter with the pain body is an invitation to deepen presence. The pain body feeds on unconsciousness, but awareness starves it. In seeing it clearly, you discover a freedom that no suffering can shake. In the next chapter, Tolle explores the cycle of pain more deeply and reveals how breaking identification with form leads us further into the liberation of being. Chapter 6. The Inner Body. Beneath thinking and emotion, there is a living field of energy, your inner body. Tolle teaches that direct contact with this subtle aliveness is the most accessible portal into the now. In this chapter, we learn to sense it, abide in it, and let it transform how we meet every moment. Being is your deepest self. You are not merely a mind with a body, you are awareness itself, the felt sense of, I am, prior to any label. The inner body is how being makes itself tangible. When you rest attention in this aliveness, identity shifts from the story of me to the silent presence that knows the story. Fear eases because presence is not threatened by thoughts about past or future. Hook within section. Notice the faint vibratory hum in your hands right now. That is the doorway. This doorway is available at any moment, in silence or in the middle of activity. The more often you pause to notice it, the more stable your sense of being becomes. Look beyond the words. Words like being, presence, or inner body are signposts, not destinations. You cannot think your way into the inner body. Instead, feel into it: hands, feet, abdomen, chest, a subtle glow, a sense of space from within. When attention moves from concept to felt experience, the mind's restlessness subsides and stillness becomes obvious. Short practice: close your eyes, sense both hands from within for 10 seconds. No image, only feeling. Then extend awareness through the arms, into the chest, and throughout the whole body until every cell seems to vibrate with quiet life. Finding your invisible and indestructible reality. The physical body changes, ages, and passes away. The inner body, pure aliveness, is not subject to time in the same way. Tolle calls it your invisible and indestructible reality, because when you rest here, you taste what is timeless underneath form. This recognition is not an escape from life but an intimacy with life as it is. The timeless quality of inner body awareness reassures you that at your core, you are untouched by the fluctuations of external conditions. This direct knowing provides a deep sense of peace. Connecting with the inner body. Begin with simple anchors. Feel the breath lower in the abdomen. Sense the body as a single field of tingling presence. Keep a portion of attention within while you read, speak, or walk. Each return strengthens the connection. Attention is like light. Wherever you shine it, that aspect of experience becomes vivid. Over time, inner body awareness becomes a quiet background to everything you do. This isn't trance. It's alert ease. It makes daily living feel more grounded and steady, even amid activity or stress. Transformation through the body. Old emotions, when met only with thinking, tend to recycle. When felt directly in the body, heat, pressure, tightness, they dissolve in awareness. Transformation happens because presence doesn't resist. It allows the wave to arise and subside. This is why Tolle says the way out is through the body, not away from it. When a surge of anger or fear appears, don't narrate it. Feel it as sensation and breathe into the space around it. The charge softens. This practice prevents emotions from hardening into grievances or identities. Instead, they become stepping stones into greater depth of awareness. Sermon on the Body. Ancient teachings hint that the body can be filled with light. Practically, this means the cells of the body are sensed from within as luminous, spacious, and at ease. You don't manufacture light, you remove resistance. A few minutes of whole-body awareness each day gradually brightens the field, making reactivity less sticky and presence more available. Over time, this practice nurtures a sense of quiet radiance that shines through actions and words. Have deep roots within. Presence rooted in the inner body is stability in motion. Like a tree with deep roots, you are less shaken by outer events. Tolle recommends keeping some attention in the inner body while interacting with people and tasks. This anchors you in the now, reducing the pull of mental narratives. Decisions become simpler because clarity replaces compulsion. Just as deep roots stabilize a tree against strong winds, inner body awareness steadies you against the turbulence of life. Before you enter the body, forgive. If agitation blocks access to the inner body, look for a grievance or non-acceptance fueling it. Forgiveness means withdrawing the story that feeds the emotion. You don't excuse behavior, you release the mental replay that keeps pain alive. Then bring attention back to raw sensation and let awareness hold it gently. The doorway opens again. This step prevents spiritual bypassing. You are not skipping pain, you are allowing it to unwind in presence. Before you enter the temple, forgive. This teaching underlines the importance of releasing mental stories before you seek inner stillness. Your link with the unmanifested. As inner body awareness deepens, you notice a still, luminous silence beneath sensation, what Tolle calls the unmanifested. Sensing the inner body is like following a river back to its source. Chi is movement, the source is stillness. Resting here refreshes action, because you return to the world carrying the quiet power of being. The more often you rest in this silence, the more your actions are infused with balance and compassion. Slowing aging and strengthening immunity. Tolle suggests that sustained presence reduces stress chemistry and supports vitality. While he speaks in spiritual language, the practical effect is simple: less inner friction, more coherence. Regular inner body awareness tends to relax the nervous system, which benefits overall resilience. This is not a claim of immortality, but an observation that harmony within tends to support harmony in the body. Let the breath take you into the body. When the mind is too active, use conscious breathing as a bridge. Follow the in-breath and out-breath into the abdomen. Let the breath light up the inner body. If you visualize easily, imagine the body bathed in quiet light, then drop the image and stay with feeling. This simple practice restores presence whenever distraction takes over. Each breath can be a return to being. Creative use of mind. Alternate focused thinking with brief returns to inner body stillness. This rhythm makes thought clearer and more original because it's rooted in presence rather than fear. Don't just think with your head, think with your whole body, says Tolle. When thought arises from a foundation of presence, creativity and problem-solving are more aligned with truth and less colored by anxiety or ego. The art of listening. Listen with the whole body. Keep part of attention in your inner field while hearing another's words. This removes mental noise and gives the other person space to be. It is one of the most practical expressions of love. Whole body listening deepens connection because it acknowledges not only the words but the being of the other. In this way, inner body awareness transforms communication into communion. The inner body is a living doorway into presence. Return to it in small moments, between breaths, between words, and life becomes simple, vivid, and sane. In the next chapter, we explore other portals into the same silence, stillness, space, sleep, and the mystery of conscious death. Chapter 7. Portals into the Unmanifested. Presence is not limited to one doorway. The now reveals itself through many portals, and each one offers a different path into the same stillness. In this chapter, Tolle describes these openings: silence, space, sleep, and conscious dying, showing that the eternal can be touched in countless ways. Each portal is both simple and profound, and by exploring them we loosen the grip of form and time. Stillness as a portal. Stillness is more than the absence of noise. It is an alive presence, a fertile ground in which all movement arises. When you notice the quiet behind sounds, you step into the now. The more you sense this stillness, the more it begins to shine through everyday activity. Even in conversation, pause to feel the silence between words. That gap is not emptiness but fullness, an entry into being. Many spiritual traditions value silence because it is the direct path to truth. When you allow stillness to expand inside, you find that peace is not the opposite of noise, it is the background in which both sound and silence appear. Each time you sense stillness, you remember who you are beneath thought. Space, the silent container. Space surrounds every object, yet we rarely notice it. We fix attention on form and overlook the formless. To shift attention to space is to taste the unmanifested. Look around the room, instead of naming objects, sense the open space holding them. That spaciousness mirrors your own inner awareness. You are not the objects of thought and emotion but the space in which they appear. This recognition loosens attachment to form and allows presence to deepen. Space practice can be brought into daily life. Notice the pauses in music, the openness of the sky, or the still air between buildings. Space is not absence, it is the ever-present field that allows all things to exist. When you live with awareness of space, form no longer dominates your attention. You see both what is present and the vast openness that holds it. Sleep and the deep rest of unconsciousness. Tolle notes that dreamless sleep is a nightly return to the unmanifested. Though unconscious, it refreshes us because it touches the formless source. Awareness of this process can shift our relationship to rest. Sleep ceases to be mere absence, it becomes a reminder that beyond mind there is a vast field of silence. Approaching sleep with gratitude and awareness makes it another subtle portal. Before drifting off, notice the inner body, sense stillness, or give thanks for the release of mind. Such practices open sleep into something sacred rather than mechanical. You may even notice a gentle awareness carried into sleep, a thread of presence that remains in the background. Sleep then becomes more than recovery, it is communion with the timeless. Conscious death as the ultimate portal. Death is often feared as annihilation, yet Tolle describes it as the greatest doorway into the unmanifested. To die consciously is to surrender identification with form while still alive. When you sense the inner body or rest in stillness, you rehearse this surrender. Thus, conscious living prepares for conscious dying. Death then is not an enemy but a return to the formless essence you already are. Remembering this removes fear and deepens reverence for life now. Contemplating mortality does not darken life, it makes each moment precious. You realize that everything perishes in form, yet being itself is untouched. Awareness of death frees us from clinging to trivialities and awakens compassion. To live with death in mind is to live more fully, with humility and gratitude. Practicing the portals daily. These portals are not abstract ideas. You can practice them moment by moment. Pause to feel stillness beneath activity. Notice the space in a room instead of only its contents. Approach sleep as sacred renewal. Reflect on mortality not with dread but with openness. Each practice points to the same truth: what you are is beyond thought, beyond form. Every portal leads to presence, and each reminder dissolves the illusion of separation. By weaving these practices into daily life, you cultivate a rhythm of returning to the now. Each portal strengthens the others, building a network of reminders that presence is always available. Why portals matter. The portals keep us from making presence into a rigid concept. When one doorway feels closed, another remains open. Some resonate more strongly depending on the moment. Together, they weave daily life into a constant invitation to awareness. By honoring them, you transform routine existence into a living meditation. They show that access to the eternal is not reserved for rare states or extraordinary experiences. It is available in silence, in spaciousness, in the gentle act of sleeping, and in the mystery of dying. Each portal affirms that the unmanifested is near, closer than breath, waiting in plain sight. The unmanifested reveals itself through stillness, space, sleep, and even death. Each portal returns us to the same timeless presence. In the next chapter, Tolle turns to the ego's need to define itself through relationships, and shows how presence can liberate love from fear. Chapter 8. Enlightened Relationships. Relationships can be the greatest source of suffering, yet they can also become profound vehicles for awakening. In this chapter, Tolle shows how the ego uses relationships to seek completion, how unconscious patterns breed conflict, and how presence transforms relationships into a field of liberation. To enter into enlightened relationship is to allow love, not fear, to be the foundation. The ego and its search for completion. The ego is restless because it feels incomplete. It believes wholeness will be found in another person. Falling in love feels intoxicating because, for a moment, the ego dissolves and presence shines through. Yet when the honeymoon fades, old patterns return. The same person who seemed to complete you now triggers your pain body. What was once joy turns into conflict. This cycle is not a failure of love but of unconsciousness. True love is not found in clinging to another for completion, it arises when both partners recognize their own essence beyond the ego. Love as the ego understands it is conditional and fragile. Presence reveals that true love does not depend on the other filling an inner void. It flows naturally when we are rooted in being. By realizing this, relationships shift from dependency to freedom. Addiction and the love-hate cycle. Most relationships oscillate between love and hate, closeness and distance. The same intensity that once brought ecstasy can bring despair. This is because the ego attaches itself to form, and demands that the other person provide identity and happiness. When they fail to do so, frustration and anger arise. The pain body feeds on these cycles, seeking drama and conflict to sustain itself. Relationships become addictive. We return to them despite suffering because they provide moments of ego satisfaction. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to freedom. The cycle can feel unbreakable, yet the simple act of witnessing it loosens its hold. Each time you catch the shift from affection to hostility, you step into awareness. Awareness exposes the futility of repeating the same drama and opens the possibility of choosing presence instead. From unconscious to conscious relationships. A conscious relationship is not based on seeking completion from another but on joining in presence. Both partners commit to seeing each other not as roles or sources of identity but as expressions of being. Instead of trying to change or control the other, they allow space for growth. Challenges are still present, but they are no longer interpreted as threats. They are opportunities to bring awareness to unconscious patterns. Each conflict becomes a doorway into greater presence, if met with awareness rather than reactivity. Conscious relationships emphasize responsibility. Each partner takes ownership of their state rather than blaming the other. This shared accountability transforms friction into fuel for awakening. The couple grows not by avoiding conflict but by using it as practice. The pain body in relationships. The pain body often awakens most strongly in intimate partnerships. Words, gestures, or even silence can trigger old wounds. The unconscious reaction is to blame the partner or defend the ego. In conscious relationship, however, both people learn to recognize when the pain body has arisen. Naming it breaks identification. Instead of fueling drama, awareness holds space for the energy to dissipate. This practice requires honesty and compassion, but it gradually transforms the relationship into a crucible for awakening. Each time you see the pain body without acting it out, you weaken its hold. Even one conscious partner can shift the dynamic. By refusing to feed conflict, the conscious one deprives the pain body of fuel. Over time, this steady presence invites the other to awaken as well. Honoring the other's presence. To honor another is to look past their personality and see the essence of being within them. Presence recognizes presence. When you keep part of your attention in the inner body while interacting, you create space for the other to rest in presence too. Communication becomes less about defending positions and more about listening deeply. This simple shift can heal years of unconscious relating. When you acknowledge the being of the other, you strengthen your own. This practice transforms ordinary interactions. A conversation becomes less about exchanging words and more about sharing presence. Love is communicated not only by what is said but by the stillness in which it is said. Allowing space in relationship. Egoic relationships are full of demands, expectations, and projections. Conscious relationships allow space. Space means permission for the other to be as they are, without needing them to fulfill your imagined picture of who they should be. This space is not distance, it is freedom. Paradoxically, the more space you allow, the deeper intimacy becomes, because true connection arises when there is no pressure to conform to ego's demands. Love thrives in openness. Allowing space also prevents relationships from becoming stagnant. When each partner has room to grow individually, the relationship evolves organically. Space nourishes freedom, and freedom nourishes love. Transforming sexuality. Tolle notes that sexuality can either reinforce ego or become a doorway into presence. When used unconsciously, it is tied to desire, possession, and addiction. When entered with awareness, sexuality becomes sacred. By staying present during intimacy, partners connect beyond form, experiencing the stillness and depth of being together. Sexuality then is not merely physical, it becomes a celebration of presence. Desire subsides into communion, and the body becomes a portal to the unmanifested. Sacred sexuality requires vulnerability, surrendering masks, roles, and expectations. When both partners bring awareness into intimacy, the physical act opens into a timeless depth that dissolves separation. Relationships as spiritual practice. An enlightened relationship is not free from challenges. Instead, it uses challenges as practice. Each conflict, each moment of impatience or jealousy, becomes a chance to awaken. When one partner remains conscious, even if the other is reactive, the cycle of unconsciousness can be broken. Over time, this transforms the relationship into a living meditation, a mirror that reflects both ego and being. The purpose of relationship shifts from satisfying ego to revealing truth. The practice lies in returning to presence, again and again. By choosing awareness in small, ordinary moments, couples prepare themselves to stay present when larger storms arise. Gradually, the relationship becomes not a distraction from awakening but its very ground. The gift of solitude within relationship. Paradoxically, conscious relationship does not abolish solitude, it embraces it. Each partner honors time apart, space for silence and presence. Solitude is not withdrawal but nourishment. It ensures that the relationship is not a fusion of two egos but a dance of two beings rooted in presence. From this foundation, companionship is deeper because it is free. Moments of solitude allow each partner to reconnect with being. When they come together again, they bring freshness rather than dependency. Solitude keeps love alive by grounding it in presence rather than need. The emergence of true love. When ego subsides and presence guides relationship, what emerges is true love. True love is not dependency, not attachment, not possession. It is a recognition of the one life shining through two forms. It is unconditional because it does not demand, it gives. Such love radiates beyond the couple, touching others with its quiet power. In this way, enlightened relationships contribute to the collective awakening of humanity. This love is expansive, it is not limited to romantic partners but extends to family, friends, strangers, and even those who oppose us. True love sees the same essence in all, and so it cannot exclude. Relationships and collective awakening. Every conscious relationship contributes to the collective shift in human consciousness. When couples transform conflict into presence, they generate a field that affects those around them. Families, communities, and even workplaces benefit from this ripple. Relationships are therefore not private matters, they are seeds of collective evolution. The more people embody presence in their connections, the more humanity moves toward peace. Relationships reveal the ego's strongest attachments, yet they also provide the greatest opportunities for liberation. By transforming relationships into fields of presence, love becomes a path to awakening. In the next chapter, Tolle explores how pain and suffering, when met consciously, can serve as powerful teachers on the journey into freedom. Chapter 9. Beyond happiness and unhappiness, there is peace. Happiness and unhappiness appear to be opposites, yet both are bound to conditions. They rise and fall with circumstances. Tolle points to a peace deeper than both, a state untouched by external change. In this chapter, he reveals how to step out of the cycle of highs and lows and enter the stillness of being. The nature of happiness and unhappiness. Happiness is often linked to favorable events, success, affection, or comfort. Unhappiness comes when those conditions shift. Because life is impermanent, both states are unstable. The ego pursues happiness desperately, fearing its loss, and resists unhappiness with equal desperation. But both are two sides of the same coin, reactions of mind to shifting form. True peace, Tolle says, arises when you stop basing identity on what comes and goes. The search for happiness keeps humanity on a treadmill of desire. Advertisements, social pressures, and cultural values reinforce the illusion that happiness lies in possessions, achievements, or relationships. Yet each time the goal is reached, it fades. This cycle leaves behind exhaustion and disillusionment, pointing toward the truth that real peace is not found outside, but within. The deeper peace beyond opposites. Peace is not the opposite of unhappiness. It is a presence underlying all experience. Even in grief or pain, stillness is available when you stop identifying with resistance. Peace is unconditional because it is rooted in being, not in events. This recognition dissolves fear of loss, because you no longer depend on circumstances for your sense of self. You can enjoy happiness when it comes, and accept unhappiness when it visits. Knowing that, neither defines you. Consider a moment of natural beauty, a sunrise, the stillness of a forest. Such moments may or may not be tied to happiness, but they carry a peace that does not depend on conditions. This peace is what Tolle calls the essence of being. Transcending the cycle of opposites. Ego thrives on contrast, success and failure, pleasure and pain, approval and rejection. By identifying with these swings, we remain trapped in perpetual motion. To transcend is not to flatten emotion but to rest in the awareness that sees both. Like the sky watching clouds, presence remains untouched as joy and sorrow pass. The more often you return to awareness, the less grip opposites have. Life becomes spacious and steady, not because emotions vanish but because you know yourself as the space in which they arise. This does not mean indifference. You still love, feel, and grieve. But behind each experience there is a dimension untouched by circumstance. This is freedom. Finding the isness of the moment. Peace comes when you say yes to the now, regardless of its form. This isness is acceptance, not passive resignation but alignment with reality. When you stop insisting that life be different, energy once wasted in resistance becomes available for clear action. Accepting the moment does not mean liking every detail, it means acknowledging that what is already here. From this alignment, transformation flows more easily because you are no longer fighting life itself. Acceptance is not complacency. In fact, only through full acceptance does authentic change arise. When you resist less, you perceive more clearly, and action becomes more effective. Joy is the dimension of being. Joy is different from happiness. Happiness is tied to what happens, joy arises from being. Joy can coexist with pain because it is not dependent on conditions. It shines as a quiet gladness, a subtle radiance that is always present beneath surface fluctuations. You can recognize this joy whenever you feel a simple aliveness, in breath, in silence, in awareness itself. This joy is the fragrance of peace. It is not something to achieve but to uncover by resting in presence. Even in moments of grief, joy may flicker beneath, like sunlight behind clouds. To sense this is to glimpse the depth of being, beyond emotional weather. Suffering and the end of resistance. Suffering intensifies when we resist what is. Pain in the body, or loss in life are challenging, but they become suffering only when the mind adds commentary. This should not be happening. Awareness ends this resistance. By observing pain without a story, you allow it to move through and release. Even grief, when allowed fully, can reveal a depth of stillness beyond tears. This is not denial but liberation from the mind's compulsion to struggle. Tolle suggests a practice: when discomfort arises, pause and feel it directly in the body. Notice the sensations without labeling them. By allowing the feeling space, you withdraw energy from resistance. Over time, this dissolves the suffering, even if pain remains. Acceptance and transformation. Tolle emphasizes that acceptance does not mean passivity. It is the doorway to effective change. When you accept the present moment, you see clearly what action is needed. Resistance clouds judgment, acceptance clarifies it. Transformation then arises not from fighting but from aligning. Even in adversity, presence opens creative solutions because it frees energy from resistance. Accepting life as it is does not chain you, it empowers you. The paradox is that only when you stop resisting the present do you unlock its potential for change. This principle applies to personal growth, healing, and collective progress. Freedom from external validation. The pursuit of happiness often hides a deeper search for validation. We want success, recognition, or love, not just for their own sake but because they affirm the ego's worth. This pursuit ensures insecurity, because external validation can vanish at any moment. Peace arises when you no longer seek yourself in others' approval. Presence reveals intrinsic worth, you are complete in being. From this foundation, relationships and achievements can be enjoyed without turning into bondage. This freedom transforms relationships. Instead of using others to confirm your identity, you meet them in authenticity. Love becomes freer because it is no longer entangled with need. Living from the depth of peace. Living from peace means carrying a quiet center into all situations. Joy and sorrow still come, but they no longer dominate. You become less reactive, more compassionate, more creative. Outer life flows more harmoniously because inner resistance has ended. Others may feel your calm presence as a silent invitation into their own. Peace is contagious, it spreads through presence rather than preaching. When peace is your foundation, even challenges become less threatening. You respond rather than react, act from clarity rather than compulsion. The gift of surrender. Surrender is the final step beyond happiness and unhappiness. It is yielding to the flow of life without losing alertness. Surrender is not weakness but strength, the strength of alignment with reality. In surrender, peace is revealed as your natural state. Nothing is lost, everything is embraced. The ego fears surrender as death, but in truth it is rebirth into freedom. Each act of surrender deepens your connection with being and loosens the hold of ego. Surrender can be practiced in small ways daily, accepting delays in traffic, listening fully to another, or releasing the need to be right. These micro-surrenders train the mind to release control and open to peace. The collective impact of peace. When individuals rest in peace beyond opposites, collective patterns of conflict weaken. Much of human history is driven by the pursuit of happiness and the fear of unhappiness, leading to endless struggle. A society where people embody peace will create systems that reflect cooperation rather than competition. By stepping out of the cycle personally, you contribute to humanity's awakening collectively. Peace within is peace without. Imagine entire communities where individuals act from presence rather than reactivity. Conflict would lessen, creativity would increase, and human relationships would reflect cooperation rather than competition. Tolle emphasizes that this collective peace begins with each person embracing the now. Beyond happiness and unhappiness lies a peace untouched by conditions. This peace is your essence, available now. In the next chapter, Tolle explores how surrender deepens further, revealing the true freedom that comes when you say yes to life without reservation. Chapter 10. The meaning of surrender. What if true freedom does not come from control, achievement, or struggle, but from surrender? To the ego, surrender sounds like defeat. But Tolle reveals that surrender is not giving up, it is giving in, to the flow of life, to the now. In this chapter, he explores how surrender becomes the key to ending suffering, transforming experience, and opening the deepest peace. What surrender is not. Surrender is often misunderstood. It does not mean resignation, passivity, or lack of initiative. It does not mean you stop setting boundaries or abandon responsibility. Rather, surrender is the inner acceptance of what is, without resistance. You can still take action, but your action flows from clarity instead of fear. Surrender is active alignment with reality, not helplessness. This distinction is essential. To confuse surrender with defeat is to miss its liberating power. It helps to contrast surrender with resignation. Resignation says, "There is nothing I can do, so I give up." Surrender says, "This is what is, and I meet it fully." One shrinks, the other opens. One closes possibilities, the other reveals them. Resistance as the root of suffering. Most suffering is created not by circumstances themselves but by resistance to them. The mind insists, "This should not be happening." That inner no creates tension, frustration, and despair. Surrender replaces the inner no with an inner yes. Even if the external situation is painful, the resistance dissolves. With surrender, pain is met directly, without the added layer of mental struggle. Life flows again. You discover that surrender ends suffering, even when pain remains. Think of resistance as swimming against a river. Exhaustion comes not from the water itself but from fighting its current. The moment you stop resisting, you discover the river carries you. The power of the inner yes. Tolle describes surrender as an inner yes to the present moment. This yes does not mean agreement with injustice or passivity in the face of harm. It means acknowledging that what is already here. From this starting point, wise action becomes possible. Without surrender, action is clouded by reactivity. With surrender, action arises from peace. This simple shift transforms not only inner experience but outer results. This yes has practical power. A project delayed, a friend who disappoints, a sudden illness, each can trigger resistance. Saying yes internally softens the body and clears the mind. From this clarity, new possibilities open that resistance would have obscured. Surrender and everyday life. Surrender is not reserved for dramatic moments, it is a daily practice. You can surrender to the traffic jam, to a delayed flight, to a difficult conversation. Each time you soften into acceptance, you reclaim peace. This practice builds resilience, because you no longer depend on external control for inner calm. Life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance. Every inconvenience becomes an invitation to return to presence. Even simple routines become opportunities. Washing dishes, waiting in line, or listening to someone's complaint, each moment offers the choice, resistance or surrender. With practice, surrender becomes second nature, transforming ordinary life into spiritual practice. Surrender and relationships. In relationships, resistance often takes the form of demands, blame, or defensiveness. Surrender here means allowing the other to be as they are, without trying to control them. This does not mean tolerating abuse, it means recognizing that another's behavior belongs to them, not to your need to control. With surrender, you respond rather than react. The relationship gains space, and space allows healing. Even if the relationship must end, surrender ensures that the ending carries peace rather than bitterness. Imagine two people arguing. Each insists on being right, fueling resistance. If one person surrenders inwardly, the energy shifts. The argument may still happen, but its grip weakens. Surrender does not guarantee harmony in every interaction, but it prevents unconscious escalation. Surrender to illness and pain. Perhaps nowhere is surrender more challenging than in illness or physical pain. The body resists, the mind protests. Yet many who have faced chronic pain or life-threatening illness report that surrender brought unexpected peace. By accepting the body's state, even while seeking healing, they discovered a freedom deeper than the condition. Pain met with resistance becomes suffering. Pain met with surrender becomes a portal to peace. Illness, in this light, is not an obstacle but a teacher. There are stories of people who, confined to a bed, discovered more freedom than ever before. Unable to move outwardly, they surrendered inwardly, finding a dimension of peace that illness could not touch. Surrender and death. Death is the ultimate surrender. The ego fears it as extinction, yet surrender transforms it into return. Tolle explains that when we live in surrender now, we rehearse conscious dying. Each small act of letting go prepares us for the great letting go. Death then loses its terror because we recognize ourselves not as the form that passes but as the being that remains. Conscious dying is simply the culmination of conscious living. To contemplate death with presence brings perspective. Small grievances lose importance, gratitude grows, and life is lived more fully when you accept its impermanence. The spiritual dimension of surrender. Surrender opens the door to the transcendent. When you stop fighting life, you discover that life carries you. Grace flows where resistance once blocked it. Many spiritual traditions speak of this: yielding to God's will, trusting the Tao, resting in the self. Though the language differs, the essence is the same. Surrender is alignment with the source of life. In surrender, you glimpse the unity behind the play of opposites. You are carried by something greater than the ego's plans. This dimension of surrender reveals that freedom is not created but uncovered. It has always been present, waiting beneath resistance. The intelligence of life. When you surrender, you trust the intelligence of life itself. The mind assumes it knows best, but life has a wisdom beyond thought. How often have events that seemed disastrous led to unexpected blessings? Surrender allows this intelligence to reveal itself. You no longer demand that life fit your picture, you open to the picture life is painting. This trust reduces anxiety and increases creativity, because you no longer waste energy in resistance. The flow of life becomes your ally. When you recall moments when life surprised you for the better, you see surrender's wisdom. Life is often more intelligent than the mind's plans. Practical ways to practice surrender. Notice resistance. Pay attention to the body, tension, tightness, stress. These are signs of inner no. Say yes inwardly. Acknowledge the moment as it is. Whisper internally, yes to this. Feel the body. Sense the inner body and breathe into it. Allow sensation to be. Act from clarity. After surrender, take action if needed. Action rooted in peace is more effective. Return often. Make surrender a habit, not a rare response. Practice in small moments so it becomes natural in larger ones. Reflect daily. At the end of the day, recall moments you resisted and imagine how surrender could have changed them. Over time, this reflection reshapes your habits. Obstacles to surrender. The ego resists surrender fiercely. It equates surrender with weakness and insists on control. Fear of loss, fear of failure, and fear of death all stand in the way. Yet each fear dissolves in the light of awareness. By observing the ego's resistance, you weaken it. By practicing surrender in small ways, you build trust in life. Eventually, surrender reveals itself not as loss but as liberation. The biggest obstacle may be pride. The ego believes it knows best and clings to being right. Surrender humbles this pride, revealing a deeper strength. What feels like loss to the ego is gain to the soul. The bliss of surrender. Those who taste surrender often describe a profound relief, as though a burden has dropped. Energy once wasted in struggle becomes available for presence. The heart softens, compassion grows, and creativity flourishes. This bliss is not excitement, it is calm aliveness. Surrender is the secret of saints and sages, but it is also available in ordinary life. Every moment holds the possibility of letting go. Bliss does not mean perpetual euphoria. It is a subtle, steady joy that coexists with life's ups and downs. It brings equanimity, the ability to remain centered in change. Surrender and collective awakening. On a collective scale, humanity resists life through conflict, exploitation, and control. Surrender at the individual level weakens these patterns. A society rooted in surrender would value cooperation over domination, sustainability over exploitation, peace over war. By surrendering personally, you contribute to this collective shift. The ripple effect of surrendered individuals creates a new world consciousness, one founded not on fear but on trust. Collective surrender might look like nations resolving conflict through dialogue instead of violence, or communities choosing sustainability over greed. While these shifts are vast, they begin with individuals practicing surrender in their own lives. Surrender is the key to freedom, the gateway to peace, and the essence of awakening. It is not defeat but liberation. By saying yes to life in all its forms, you align with its deepest truth. In the final reflections, Tolle gathers the threads of his teaching, pointing to the timeless presence that has always been your true home. Final reflections. Living in the now. Every chapter has pointed to one truth: the now is all we ever have. Behind pain, beyond the search for happiness, and deeper than surrender lies the timeless presence that is our true essence. In these final reflections, Tolle gathers the threads of his teaching, reminding us that enlightenment is not a far-off goal but the recognition of what is here already. The essence of presence. Presence is simple, yet the mind makes it seem elusive. It is found in the pause between thoughts, in the breath, in the awareness of the inner body. Presence is not something to be achieved but remembered. Each time you return to now, you glimpse the truth: you are not the story, not the pain, not the fleeting emotions, you are the awareness that knows them. This recognition is liberation. Living the teachings. Tolle emphasizes that reading or hearing about presence is not enough. It must be lived. This means using daily life as practice. Every traffic jam, every conversation, every moment of waiting becomes a doorway. Enlightenment is not escape from ordinary life but deepening into it. Washing dishes, walking in the rain, listening to another, each is sacred when lived consciously. The goal is not to eliminate thought or emotion but to let them flow without identification. The simplicity of being. In the end, presence is profoundly ordinary. It is simply being here, without resistance. It is resting in the awareness that remains unchanged while life's forms rise and fall. This simplicity is overlooked because the ego seeks something dramatic. Yet enlightenment is not fireworks, it is the quiet recognition of who you already are. When this is seen, peace is constant, even amid change. The call to humanity. Tolle reminds us that the collective transformation of humanity depends on individuals' awakening. Each person who lives in presence contributes to the whole. In families, workplaces, and societies, consciousness spreads silently. You do not need to convince others, your presence is the teaching. By embodying peace, you plant seeds of peace in the collective. In this way, awakening is both personal and universal. The timeless now. Past and future dissolve in the light of presence. What remains is the timeless now, a field of stillness from which all life emerges. To rest here is to be at home. Nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be taken away. This is the freedom Tolle points toward, life lived without resistance, rooted in being. The now is eternity disguised as this moment. Thank you for journeying through these teachings. If you have listened with openness, you have not only heard words but touched the silence beneath them. Carry this awareness into your life. Let each breath remind you of the now. Let each challenge invite you into surrender. Let each relationship reflect the presence you are. If you enjoyed this audiobook and want to support the channel, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who may find value in these teachings. Your support helps us grow and continue creating meaningful content. Thank you for listening, and may the peace of being accompany you always.